So, happy August. Seems like just a few days ago I was saying happy July, you know. But when I was here saying happy July, it was now, right? I didn't say here we are a month ago. Happy July now. Happy August now. You may hear me say sometime happy September. And it will be now, right? The present moment. So time is a great enigma. Obviously, we live in time in a way. We plan. We remember. Sometimes when we look in the mirror, our body may remind us of time. But it's always now, right? No matter what age we are. Whenever we're aware of something, it's always now. If we are living in the past or the future, we're not living in the present moment. We're not aware. But as soon as we wake up, what time is it? It's now. You know, you're dreaming. Maybe you're dreaming about when you were 3 years old a few decades ago. And you're really right there. And the alarm goes off. You open your eyes. It's now. See, it wasn't now in the dream. It was, you know, in dreams, past and future go back and forth sometimes. But anytime we're awake and aware, it's always now. So that's a huge part of the Dharma practice, is staying present in the moment. And the way we do that is not by trying to force ourselves to think about the present moment, but simply be aware and to notice that when we're aware, it's now, always now. And yet as we practice living in the present moment, we may still unconsciously be living in the past. That's a great paradox, because conscious awareness is a small fraction of our total being. You know, I've heard 5%, maybe 10%. No way to measure it, but it's a very small amount compared to all of who we are. Part of us, part of our psyche, part of our soul. When I say soul, I simply mean the totality of you as an individual. Five, 10% of that you're aware of. So roughly 90, 95% we're not aware of. And what is in the unconscious are memories, memories of the past. We carry the past with us, and that's not a bad thing. We learn how to tie our shoe when we're, 7 years old. And it's a good thing. We carry that memory with us. We remember when we were kids, stop, look, and listen before you cross the street. It's a good one to carry with you. So it's not bad to hold memories. But sometimes those memories are like undigested food. The food we eat in the body, if it can't be digested, the body will expel it. At one end or the other, it'll come out. And the psyche is the same way. If there's something in the psyche that's not digested, it will eventually rise to the surface of our awareness. Kind of like it with the body, if you get a sliver, eventually that sliver will work its way to the top. It will fester. The body will expel it. So that's the nature of the body. That's the nature of the psyche, is to expel whatever cannot be integrated and digested. When we learn to read and write and count and tie our shoes, etc., those memories were integrated. They become part of who you are. And for better or worse, there's a lot of memories that we carry that are part of who we are. But there's also memories we have that haven't been digested. In other words, they're not complete. They're not integrated. In the Gestalt system, they call this unfinished business. For example, it could contain maybe unfulfilled needs. As a child, if we didn't have our needs met chronically, that creates a wound. Perhaps that wound is not digested, healed. Or if we've had a trauma of some sort that's not been processed, digested, that becomes, like food that's undigestible. So these things tend to come to the surface when we're present in the moment. Because the psyche says, this is a wound that needs to be healed. Now, much of the time, we're not living in the present moment. We're busy doing something. We're busy being something. And these things never really have a chance to arise. When we are present in the moment, particularly like if we sit at a retreat, for example, or even at home, if we sit for long periods of time, we'll begin to notice things come up. So when we look back at our life, we see that certain experiences were never completed. For example, a little boy falls down and skins his knee, and he cries. He maybe his father or his older brother or his friends say, well, you know, don't be a wimp. Don't be a crybaby. You know, that's no big deal. It's just a skin knee. And so the little boy learns to suck it in. Or a little girl starts to get angry, and she's told that nice girls don't get angry. That's that. I've seen, maybe you've seen it too, where a father dies, father dies, and little boy, 10-year-old, 12-year-old's crying. And Uncle Joe comes up and puts his hand on the boy's shoulder and says, hey now, straighten up. You're the man of the family. You got to be strong for your mother. And you can just see the armor being put on and the feelings being stuffed. So all those are examples of incomplete feelings. And they will come out if we allow them to. I was at Insight Meditation Society in Barre, Massachusetts, doing a 10-day retreat. And after a couple of days, this one woman at the retreat, every time she'd get on the cushion, she would start wailing and howling and crying and just carrying on. Obviously, she was doing some deep, deep work. And I happened to be in a group that she was in as we were interviewing with our teachers. And she said that her brother had been murdered 5 years ago in Mexico City. And she had grieved his loss, but she realized that she hadn't let herself feel the rage. She was Hispanic, and in that culture, she was, you know, women are not supposed to have rage and anger. So she unconsciously stuffed that, and it was finally coming out. And after that retreat, why, she brightened up. I mean, she looked different at the end of the retreat. So we're not trying to do therapy here, but the psyche is trying to heal itself. And if we're present in the moment without distracting ourselves, that will eventually come up. When we're unaware of these feelings or these memories, they will distort our present moment awareness. One of the ways they show up is through projection. I think most of us know what projection is. It's when we don't see something within us, so we project it onto something else, usually somebody else, for better or worse. Yes, sir. I don't say, acknowledge my hidden anger. So I look out and I see angry people everywhere, and they scare me. They scare me because I'm afraid of my own anger, see? Or every time I live my life, I'm just so aware of losing things and losses. Maybe that's because there's some unhealed grief within me. And those losses are trying to trigger that unhealed grief. So there's ways in which the subconscious will find ways to express itself, either directly to us, or if we're not present to that, it will distort our awareness and we think it's in the outer world. And that's really problematic. If we have deep shame within ourselves that we refuse to acknowledge, we're going to project it onto other people, call them bad or less than or inferior. That's what racial prejudice is all about. Anytime we see an other that's bigger than life, positively or negatively, you say, they're evil, they're bad, or they're a saint, they're wonderful. You know, political figures and movie actors, TV actors, and athletes, some athletes to a degree, but they carry a lot of positive projections sometimes. You know, when Princess Diana was killed, people all over the world were grieving as if they lost their own daughter or sister. She was carrying a lot of the projections of a lot of people. So, the very interesting thing is when we're in the moment, that part of us that's still living in the past will eventually come to the surface. We have within us, I think I've talked about this before, the idea of the warrior, the warrior that's fighting a war that's long gone. And that actually happened, you know, after World War II. Some of these islands in the Pacific, there were Japanese soldiers held in these machine gun nests. They didn't know the war was over, and they would try to shoot anybody that came toward them. This went on for many months after the war was over. So we're fighting these battles that are long over, but we don't know that they're over. You know. So these things will be acted out if we're not aware. You know, falling in love is a classic example of a projection. And it feels so good. I mean, it's a legal drug is what it is, basically, and I'm not putting it down. It's a wonderful feeling. But it's not real because it doesn't last, right? Maybe we try to make it last. But, you know, we get into it. We fall in love with someone that's just absolutely flawless and wonderful in every way. And then 2 years later, you know the rest. We meet the real person. Not the one that we married, but the real person. And sometimes if we were loved conditionally by our parents, like if we were good were we loved, then that puts us in a straitjacket. The rest of our life we learn, follow the rules and be good and don't upset anybody. Or if a person were physically abused, maybe there's a lot of anger and hurt inside of them. They become a bully. That's their way of acting out that anger. So we don't have to do psychological mining. I mean, psychotherapy, psychoanalysis may do some of that, and it's okay. It can be very helpful. But for the most part, if we're simply present and allow these things to come up, they will. That's why I titled my talk, Be Here Now. And then the past will begin to arise. What we call the past anyway. It's here now. So when these things arise, just allow them to. We don't do anything any different than our practice, awareness and equanimity. Most of the time I've experienced, and the people I've worked with have experienced, that it's not so much these memories arise directly, but they tend to arise more as feelings in the body or vague emotions. You know, maybe an aching feeling in the chest around the heart, or maybe some tight shoulders, or maybe just feelings of loneliness or grief, sadness, or anger. And a lot of times I'll hear people say, well, there's no reason for me to feel this way. There's always a reason. If you're feeling it, there's a reason you're feeling it. It may not be a visible reason, but there's a reason it's being felt. So if we meet that loyal soldier that's still fighting the battle from the past, all we do is be aware and love. If we meet that fear or that grief or that whatever it is that comes up, just practice equanimity, awareness. That's one of the greatest healers there is awareness. But awareness opens us up to feelings that sometimes aren't comfortable, and therefore we find ways to go to sleep. And in our culture, there are billions of ways of going to sleep, distracting ourselves. So there's no should. You shouldn't feel a certain way. Sometimes people will say, well, none of this is coming up for me. What's wrong with me? Am I in denial? Don't worry about it. Just be present in the moment, and what you need will come to you. Living in the present moment, being aware is incredibly powerful. But it's so simple. Not easy, but it's so simple. It's easy to do for a minute or 2 minutes, but to do it all day long is very difficult. So we don't set a goal. We simply set the intention in each moment. Am I awake in this moment? Am I awake in this moment? That's all we have to ask ourselves. Finding ways to stay awake. And it will transform your life. It's amazing. Some of you I know have already experienced that. So I think we're ready for that last slide, Victor. Thank you. So if you practice staying in the now, then the owl will come up. If you stay with the owl, then the wow emerges. And that's exactly what happens when you come into wholeness. So thank you for sharing your practice with us this morning. May all beings be free.